So yeah, I mean, you're talking about the current market where we're at right now with just the kind of like palpable feeling, um, that's happening right now. So I get it, man. And what are you hearing from a lot of people that you're connected with right now?
Well, what I know right now is that for every real estate agent that I talk to, there's three categories. Number one is a seasoned veteran who's
Hmm.
anxious to see a shifting market because they hope that the market adjusts more and goes down because that gives them the ability to do market share. These are typically people who did well in the Great Recession and who've
Yeah.
been in the business at least more than 12 years. Uh, so there's that. You've
Yeah.
got the newer agents who just really don't know what's going on. And so they're kind of oblivious. It's like being a teenager again. You hear your parents talking about bills and problems and stuff, and you're just oblivious. You're ignorant to what's going on. So you're just keep on moving. But then you
Yeah.
have the people kind of in between that um, last year and for maybe the 5 to 10 years before that, business was easy, business was
Right.
plentiful, and now it seems to the things are drying up, and now they're frantic, they're scared because they don't know how to shift. They're hearing one thing from the national media that there's nothing to see here, everything's fine, inflation is transitory, all that good things. But when you go into the here and now and you start seeing things on the ground, it's not coinciding with what the message is. So I think that brings up confusion, and there's a lot of fear. I think, and you and I have talked about this in the past, and this has really been my message for the people that I have been talking to of lately, is that lead generation solves all problems. Doesn't matter what kind of market it is. If you're
Yeah.
focused 100% on lead generation, and then your secondary objective is lead conversion and nurturing,
Yeah.
everything else down the stream is just going to make ends meet. But
Cool.
it's been so easy to generate a lead. It's been so cheap to generate a lead. Dan Kennedy, I listened to one of his podcasts, and Russell Brunson was talking about how the cost of Facebook and the cost of digital marketing is going up. And you'll probably be able to talk more to that. I know that you spend a tremendous amount of money on on media, but Dan Kennedy goes, yeah, it's going to be like a real business. It's going to be like a real source where you actually have a cost to generating that lead, and
Yeah.
when you have that cost, you're more adept not to waste your money on that because a lot of leads come in, a lot of people pay for leads, and then they don't follow up on them. They come in, they don't answer the phone, they don't send an email, they don't send a text message, they don't follow up. It's like if people don't just come up and say, hey, I want to buy this, then they're just gone by the wayside.
Even then, I literally just got off of a team huddle with my client success team, and we're going through, auditing some people's stuff. I can't tell you how many unresponded messages are like, "Hey, I want to see this house, or I'm looking for this, this price range, or what do you know about this price?" Nothing, no response. Like, what do you like? Just shaking them
So a
to get
lead
them,
comes in and nothing.
and
No
it's just like, "Hey,
callback, no text message, no email.
call your leads." Like you put in all this time, effort, and energy. Like, just respond back to them at a minimum.
At a
Um,
minimum.
and I get it. For some people, this is a good quality problem to have. Like, they're just legitimately too busy, which that's a real life problem for a lot of people. Like you were talking about, like, hey, lead generation solves all
All
problems.
problems.
Um, and typically what we see, and what I've learned is like, hey, we solve that problem first, but then our bottleneck becomes even just responding back to people. So, we typically well, first thing we do is like we'll plug in software systems, but that can only go so far before a real life human needs to get involved.
Yeah.
So that, like, the next source to that bottleneck is typically, a lot of times we'll recommend, and this is a topic from a previous conversation we had, remote team member. So plugging in like an inside sales agent to actually just follow up with your leads that you're getting, because ideally you want to be so busy that you can't get back to everybody. Those are the good quality problems to have. But you know, circling back to our original thing where it's like, hey, the markets, there's a lot of uncertainty. People don't know. And I shared this with somebody the other day, where it was almost as if they were talking about, hey, they're like, I'm just gonna, take time off, and wait for things to get better. And
God,
you
they're
know,
gonna be
my
waiting for a
my
long time, I think.
my response, I was like, hey, winter's coming, and some people freeze to death, and some people go skiing and snowboarding.
Which one are you?
What
Which
do
one are
we,
you gonna do?
what choice are we going to make right now? And so it was, you could see the lights go off of like, hey, I don't know how long this winter is going to be, but like, I'd prefer to be skiing and snowboarding rather than freezing to death, because some people are just going to, that's, they're going to go into retirement, right?
So you said that, people are busy, and I've come to the belief, 25 years in the business, I come into the belief that that's just a story that they tell themselves. I
Right.
don't think that for the most person that they distinguish the difference between being busy and busyness, right? So they're either in their business or they're running around their business. Like I see that there's so much waste time. If you took all your active things that you're doing that
Yeah.
actually generate business and you clump all that time together, I would wager that it's not going to exceed 4 hours a day. That's kind of my opinion.
Right.
But what happens is that they'll be sitting there staring at the computer screen, wondering what they should do or what they can't do, or they're going to jump into a file, or they're going to spend way too much time on the comments that go into the multiple listing service, and they're calling that work. They're calling that
Right.
being business. I find that most, at least talking from the real estate side of things, everybody makes time for the gym, everybody makes time for lunch. Weird. Not saying that you don't have to eat, but this goes down to my belief system that everybody makes time for things that are important to them.
Mhm.
And if they're not making time for lead generation, they're not making that. Then it's just really not that important. I mean, let's call a spade here. If you're, it's it's the agent, it's the mortgage professional's own fault. If you don't have any leads, it's your own fault, because one of the things that we know that is abundantly true since the invention of sales is that prospecting, regardless of how much time it takes, regardless of how effective it is nowadays, it will always work. Will always work if you put in the time, if you put in the effort, if you put in if there is these things that I think a lot of people have never seen or heard of called a phone book, where it lists all the names and numbers. Even if all you did was call out of the phone book to just random numbers in the area, you do that often enough, you're going to find somebody. You're going to. Is it going to be fun? Absolutely not. It's going to be the most horrible thing ever. It's going to be the most boring thing ever. But you'll
Yeah.
get something out of it. Now, you don't have to do that, but it kind of just illustrates the point that if you don't have any leads, it's not because you can't buy Zillow leads or because you don't have the resource to do this or that or the other. Look, if you don't have a phone in this day and age, you can't be in real estate right now. You can't be in mortgages. You got to go get a job until you can actually afford at least the minimum things that you need in order to be successful. And really, to me, that's an internet connection and a phone and a good pair of shoes.
There you go. I love that. I I really resonated with your comments of like how people make time for lunch, they make time for gym, right? And those are like on their calendar, or they know specifically what time. Hey, at 1 o'clock, I have my lunch, right? And that's like they plan around that. And um, you're to touch on that comment, like if there's not dedicated time to be doing the day, like daily disciplines, like your prospecting, like whatever it is, following up with your leads, like time, me personally, and everybody's different, but I personally, I'll do, I'll write out my day, time block, but it's scheduled, in 30-minute increments, like what I'm going to do for the day, whether it's meetings or and I find my open spots, and I make sure that, like, hey, I'm doing blank here. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm not wondering what I'm doing. And when that time comes up, when that next 30-minute, clicks over, I'm on to that next thing.
Yeah.
So it creates that sense of
Look, we do
urgency.
this every single Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard. Every
Right.
single, like clockwork, unless one of us is traveling, which was the last 3 weeks. You were traveling, you were back, then I was traveling, now we're back, and now I'm traveling in like 2 weeks. But um, and here's the thing: is that when you see an adjustment in a market, a lot of these people who I listen to when it comes to what they foresee, their speculation on the market, their assessment is based on looking out the window and seeing what the weather is, and that's their report.
Mhm.
Because you and I have been talking about a shifting market, a pivoting market in 2021.
Right.
When just small little, we were just talking about these small little cracks that we were foreseeing and we were speculating, and everyone else is just talking about how amazing it's going to be and that things are fine. There's nothing to see here. It's transitory. All this other things until it's not. But I think when you start looking at the number of transactions that are transactions are going down, I just saw an article that we are now seeing. This is on the national scale, so each market's going to be uniquely different. We're now seeing the average sales price starting to go down. We see
Mhm.
units go down. We're seeing new listings on the market go down. We're seeing prices go down. We're entering into the winter season. Look, I'm telling you, the I think the top agents, the seasoned agents, they're going to adjust their business. They're going to pivot. They're going to shift. They're going to adjust. They're going to do what they need to do to continue to generate those leads in that business. Whereas those mid-tier and below, based on number of production, not by personality, but just if you're only doing one or two deals a year, I think that you're going to adjust with the market.
What do you think some of, like, the top agents, I mean, obviously everybody's going to be different. But what do you think some of the top agents will be doing to help adjust to the market conditions? Or and I'll share for me, when I see things like this, or when I see environments like this, I personally look at it as an opportunity to grow market share. To, okay, time to get to work, where I'm in growth mode, looking to grow, looking to get lean at the same time. So lean out, but also, I'm not taking my foot off the gas. Um, is there things that you're picking up from people, or in your sphere of people that you're talking to, that you're kind of catching on to, like dropping little nuggets that they're putting out there?
So with my position, I have access to some conversations with some pretty amazing agents, and one that I spoke
Mhm.
to of recently, him and his very small team do 400 million in production each year. Like that's pretty spectacular. His average sales
Yeah.
price is like 5 million in Northern California. But when I was talking to him, there's a lot of what I see in real estate is a lot of people just going 100% fundamentals. They're not paying attention to everything that's else going on, right? We talk about social, we talk about search, we talk about prospecting. I think when you get into this business, that the training is just hammer the phones, hammer the doors, pay no attention to what the consumer is saying, whether they like it or not. Just do it
Mhm.
anyways. I think that's
Yeah.
right, and that's what we were talking about in the beginning. Is that will always work, and I think that there should be some level of that built into everybody's plan. But
Yeah.
what I'm finding is that the agents who are doing really well, they've taken these modern technologies that have just debuted in the last 10, 15, 20 years, and they've really built out a mixed martial
Ecosystem.
art, so to speak. Right? They have a digital strategy. They have a social media strategy. They're
Yeah.
engaging with people on these different platforms. They're running YouTube ads. They're doing a ton of video. But the other thing is too, they're not generalists. A lot of real estate agents, they get into the business and they want to be the real estate agent extraordinaire on planet Earth, and they think that they can do
Right.
everything for everyone. But everyone who does a massive amount of business, in my experience, they have a very honed down market area, and they go really deep into it. They are the specialist. They are the expert within their area, and they make a ton of. That doesn't mean that you can't do something else. One of
Yeah.
the examples I give on specialties, when you look at other professions like the medical field or the legal field, um, generalists typically get paid less than a specialist. A neurosurgeon get paid tremendously more than a family practitioner.
Right.
That doesn't mean that the neurosurgeon doesn't have the skills to talk with you about stitches or a cold or whatnot. It just says that they're the specialist, and they command. But they're not doing that. They're not answering the phones. They're not sending out mailers. They're focused on operating. And I think that that's what I see with the top agents. The top agents started out just like everyone else. They started out at zero. They didn't have a team.
Mhm.
They had to do everything on their own. They had to burn the candle at both ends. They had to not only learn how to get the business, but they also had to learn how to do the business. And then they gradually grew in scale. So these excuses that we receive, that I don't have the money, I don't have the resources, yes, that's a big deal. But when I got into this business when I was 22, I didn't have any money, had a lot of ambition, didn't know what failure meant, and I've forgotten how many phone calls I've made. I've probably knocked on thousands of doors,
Right.
most of which got slammed in my face or I got hung up on, but I just did it again. Now, I wouldn't do that. I was having a conversation with an agent a few days ago. I wouldn't do that now, but I'm not 22, 23 years old anymore. There's
Yeah.
other things I would do. I would do exactly what we're talking about.
I mean, you have typically have time or money, as far as like the resources are
Yeah,
concerned, and you got to pick and choose. But yeah, I'm a big believer of putting in that sweat equity and learning that skill, and then firing yourself from that job, right?
yeah.
You
You're really good at that
you
too.
do that, um, and it's something that I see that does, and to kind of touch on what you're talking about is like um, treating those agents, those top agents, those top producers. They treat it, it's much more of a business. They look at it like that. They're focusing on things like operations and bringing on team members and removing themselves from making the phone calls or doing the mailers or whatever it is. And that's definitely a common theme that I see from a lot of people. It's like just there's the excuse of I'm too busy, but there's also um, you know managing their time and and moving themselves out of that busy work.
Yeah. I met with one of my friends midweek. Been in the business for 40 years. He focuses on the Woodbridge area in Southern California. You're familiar with it because you're familiar with Irvine, but master plan community in Irvine, shocker. But um, he's been doing the business. He started his business in that subdivision, like around that time, since it was new, and now he's still doing it. And he got away from. He's looking up to ramp things back up, but even though he's not actively working the farm, he's not really staying top of mind with his database. He's so well known that he still has 2% of all the market share in
Mm,
that subdivision. And I would say, and I'm working with him on this, on how to implement technology. How do you do that so when somebody hits social media that they see him,
yeah.
using various different landing pages to capture leads, much like Zillow does, but just better. And he's easily going to be able to double that production in the next 12 months just by that little bit of extra effort.
Right.
Right? I mean, just mailing, one of the things you've seen my swipe file of all the mail that I get. All the mail that I get from real estate agents is image advertising. It's it. Look at this house, look at me. That's it. There is no call to action on it. So one of the things that we're going to work with on him is creating a free report of how to sell your wood bridge home in a shifting market for top dollar, or how to sell it for top dollar in a shifting market, whatever it is. But it's going to have a call to action on it. If you're going to mail it out anyways, mail it out and let's see what kind of conversions you get, because the only person who's going to be opting into that is somebody who lives in Woodbridge who's interested in selling their home in a shifting market for top dollar. So we're going to launch that probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we're putting up metrics so we can track that. But then he's growing a small team. He's not taking the calls. He's going to take the listing calls, but as far as the follow up, that's going to fall back onto his team, which we're going to have scripts. We're going to have they're going to be on a dialer. They're going to have text messages. So when the lead comes in, it's going to get a text message. We'll probably have a video on there saying, hey, thank you for your report. And it's going to come out to you. Maybe, and at that point, probably send them to a long form lead gen page to ask them a bunch of questions to pre-qualify them. So I don't know. I'll let you know how it goes. But
the the on the mailer, I know you mentioned before, like I know we got to wrap this up too. You mentioned like QR codes previously on some other stuff. Are you guys thinking about trying to incorporate that into like the mailer strategy? Or
so, the one thing about digital strategies, we've talked about this. I actually you and I probably laughed at it pre-COVID about why do people even use QR codes? It's a dead technology. It never really garnered any type of adoption. Most people didn't even know what they use. But then COVID came along, and now it becomes something that is fully adapted into society, at least for most people's ideal client. Sure, there might be some really big adoption than people that have not adopted it. Really young people, perhaps maybe even older people. But for the most part, I think that a lot of people have. It's either that or you don't eat. So we are going to adopt a unique QR code on every piece of mailer that goes out, so that we can track exactly how effective that was. So
I have something that just popped into my marketing mind right now, and I'm just going to throw it out there. But so we get these mailers out, right? A free report is great, right? But what if we partner with like a local restaurant to get a free appetizer?
So that's the other idea, is that when you send something out, have a buy one, get one free. And in order to get that buy one, get one free, they have to join the monthly newsletter, either a physical newsletter or an e-newsletter at a minimum. And each month, one of those goes out. Not only does that help you build relationship with the owner of the restaurant, who probably lives in their market area, but it also enables them perhaps to even get some advertising dollars to offset the cost of doing something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. I've been digging deep into a zero-sum marketing strategy to get local referrals plugged in and being able to offer. A lot of it has to do with like closing baskets, where it's like, hey, you're gonna get this.
You just gave me an idea. Here's the idea. What if you go to the local ice cream shop, Baskin Robbins, and you pick one day and you say, you know what? I'm going to buy an ice cream cone for everybody on this one day. And then you throw out marketing, free ice cream cone for the residents of XYZ neighborhood. They have to opt in. They have to put their address, and then we'll send them an email coupon, because now you have verified information. You don't have to throw an event. You might end up having to buy 100 ice cream cones, but you go to them
$3 a
and
pop at
you
Baskin
work out
Robbins.
some sort of deal with
Yeah,
them because you know someone's not going to go in. Very rarely are you only going to get one ice cream cone.
yeah,
Maybe
right.
the single person will. But if you're
Totally.
just going to target market certain people and you're like, hey, free ice cream cone for the residents of XYZ neighborhood only on this day, make up a reason for the date.
Yeah.
To honor my 25th year in real estate, to honor my 100th closing or something like that. Then what a great you used to do that. You used to do that with your holiday, your ticket giveaway.
Yeah, we used to do a lot of, and this is,
I mean, talk about database growing.
concert
That's fantastic.
tickets. I mean, you could do it for pretty much anything, but like concert tickets were a big thing where you could like, you just buy one ticket and it's like a raffle. But there's a lot of different ways to
What a
incorporate
great way to
stuff like
grow your
that.
database because what's great about that is my focus is talking to people about growing in a primary market area.
Hmm.
So if you create your ad and if you're doing mailers, put that in there. I mean, you don't even have to buy everyone an ice cream cone. You could just have, win a set of tickets
Yeah.
and enter into a raffle. All you have to do is join the newsletter. We have a drawing monthly. That's a great
So I
idea.
think we
I
got
wrote
our
that down, by
topic
the
for
way.
next week.
I wrote that down. What'd you say?
I said I think we got our topic for next week.
The different types of
The giveaway
the giveaway.
promotion,
That's what we're
the
going to do. So
QR,
anyone watching this, tune in next week and we're going to be talking about the various different ideas for giveaways. And I'll tell you what, Luke is the master of that. No Jedi pun intended, but he really is. That's how he really got us started and I got to watch everything that he did and how he got started in his digital space. So, all right, we're at time.
Awesome, my friend.
So we will catch everyone next week.